Interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence.
Well, the things that I experienced with him were monster-like. That stuff almost destroyed my life.
We've all seen the headlines, the raids, the courtroom sketches of a once untouchable mogul now facing a reckoning. But what we're learning now isn't just about Sean Diddy Combs. It's about the web of influence that stretched far beyond his mansion walls. And at the center of the latest storm, Paris Hilton. Not as a bystander, not as a victim, but as someone insiders claim was deeply embedded in the very parties now under FBI scrutiny. The question isn't just what she saw, it's what she allegedly participated in, and why, after years of silence, the walls might finally be closing in. Let's start with the timing. Just weeks ago, federal agents executed search warrants at Diddy's properties in LA and Miami, a move that sent shockwaves through the industry. The charges? Racketeering, trafficking, and a pattern of behavior so systemic that prosecutors describe it as an enterprise. But here's the twist. Sources familiar with the investigation tell us the FBI isn't just looking at Diddy.
Now we should say that, remember, Diddy and his team were very upset when they found out that this footage was part of the documentary, and they tried to shut it down, but the
act of taping it is
already
what
out.
is so
the
awful.
The act of taping it, right?
Without
Diddy would say that I didn't authorize that video going out, and the argument they've made is that he's the one who has the right, that he owns that.
They're tracing the connections. Who attended, who benefited, and who might have turned a blind eye to what was really happening behind the velvet ropes. And that's where Paris Hilton's name surfaces, not as a guest, but as someone insiders describe as an active participant in the after-hours culture that allegedly fueled Diddy's operation. We're not talking about vague rumors. We're talking about first-hand accounts from individuals tied to the case, who claim Hilton wasn't just present at these gatherings. She was a fixture. One former associate, who spoke on condition of anonymity, described her as more than a socialite. She was part of the machinery. The implication? That the same parties where aspiring artists allegedly faced coercion, where substances flowed freely, and where cameras rolled in private rooms, were also spaces where Hilton's presence wasn't incidental. It was strategic. And now, with Diddy's legal team scrambling to contain the fallout, the question isn't just about his guilt. It's about who else might be exposed when the full scope of these events comes to light. But let's rewind to understand why this matters now. The white parties, Diddy's infamous annual bashes, weren't just social events. They were power moves.
I'm sorry, I'm just I'm in this moment right now. This is crazy. Sorry. People don't really know how much what it does to you when something that you love is taken from you and thrown away like it don't even matter, and then they move on with their lives and you're stuck. You're stuck. During those years, you're still stuck 21.
From 1998 to 2009, they drew A-listers like Mariah Carey, Jay-Z, and, yes, Paris Hilton, under the guise of breaking down racial and generational barriers. The dress code was all white, the vibe, exclusive. But behind the scenes, lawsuits allege something far darker. A 2024 filing from a man who attended the inaugural 1998 party at just 16 years old describes being lured into a private area where Diddy allegedly demanded he prove himself as a rite of passage to stardom. Another lawsuit from a former security guard claims he was given a substance and assaulted at the 2006 event. And then there's Adria English, an adult film performer who says she was groomed into trafficking after working multiple white parties where drinks were allegedly spiked. So where does Hilton fit in? According to multiple sources, she wasn't just a guest. She was a recurring presence in the VIP sections where the most questionable behavior allegedly occurred. One industry insider who worked PR for Diddy in the early 2000s told us, Paris wasn't there for the music. She was there for the access. And that access, they claim, came with expectations.
So, Q of Day 26, they were on Making the Band 4. He has finally come out and had a conversation about why he was so upset and crying, and a lot of his interviews talking about Diddy and that whole conversation. Yeah. And he is making some really huge allegations against Dawn.
The same parties where Quay from Day 26 says he blacked out after being given substances, where Don Richard has denied allegations of facilitating similar incidents, and where Justin Bieber's name has resurfaced in connection to Diddy's 48 hours of madness with a 15-year-old. These weren't just scenes of excess. They were allegedly staging grounds for leverage. Now, let's connect the dots to Epstein. Hilton has long been a name floated in connection to Jeffrey Epstein's circle, though she's denied any meaningful interaction. In a 2025 interview with The Times, she dismissed claims that Ghislaine Maxwell tried to recruit her for Epstein as clickbait, saying, "I don't even remember meeting her."
As we've seen dozens of new photos we haven't seen before of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell with very high-profile people, celebrities, people like Mick Jagger and Michael Jackson, like you showed, also like British royalty and actors. All of that we sort of knew was happening. I want to highlight specifically two for the public interest, and that is President Clinton and President.
But here's the problem. Photos place her at the same 2000 Ann and John fashion show where Maxwell and Donald Trump were also present. And while Hilton may not recall the encounter, the timing is impossible to ignore. Epstein's operation and Diddy's parties weren't just parallel. They were part of the same ecosystem where power, influence, and alleged exploitation intersected. What's changed? The FBI's current probe isn't just about Diddy. It's about the network. And Hilton's name isn't coming up in isolation. It's tied to testimonies from individuals like Quay, who broke down in a Vlad TV interview describing how he woke up in Diddy's twins' bedroom, screaming with cameras rolling. It felt very sacrificial, he said, his voice cracking. Or Don Richard, who vehemently denied giving Quay a substance, but whose statement, "This situation is not about one person," hints at a much larger circle of complicity. Then there's Usher, who lived with Diddy at 13 and later told Howard Stern he saw things so wild he couldn't even process them. When Stern asked if he'd let his own kids near that environment, Usher's response was immediate. Hell no. So why is Hilton's alleged involvement only surfacing now? 2 words, legal pressure.
You had day 17 in the Diddy trial as the biggest one yet. Guess what? Bingo, you won, because today was probably the most eventful day as far as things that happened that were said on the stand, and most importantly, things that the judge said, because Diddy almost got kicked out of his own trial.
With Diddy's trial looming in May 2025 and over 120 accusers reportedly coming forward, the FBI isn't just building a case against one man. They're mapping a system. And in that system, Hilton's role, whether as a witness, a participant, or something in between, could be critical. Insiders suggest that the same leverage Diddy allegedly used to control artists, career opportunities, blackmail, the promise of fame, might have extended to the celebrities who orbited his world. For someone like Hilton, whose brand was built on being the ultimate insider, the stakes of cooperation, or silence, would have been sky high. But here's where it gets even more complicated. In the wake of the raids, Justin Bieber unfollowed Usher on Instagram, a move that sparked speculation about what he might know. Bieber's own history with Diddy is well documented, from the 48 Hours clip where Diddy joked about things you do with Big Brother Pup, to the resurfaced footage of a 15-year-old Bieber at Diddy's house being handed a bottle by an unidentified woman. Bieber has never addressed these connections publicly, but the timing of his social media purge, right as the Diddy scandal exploded, isn't a coincidence. And if Bieber's team is distancing him, what does that say about the others who were there? Let's talk about the White Party guest lists. They weren't just random celebrities. They were carefully curated mixes of old money elites, hip-hop royalty, and young stars on the rise.
Diddy really screwed up, and I'm not referring to his criminal trial, which has him sitting in prison right now, but it has to do with something that happened right before he got arrested. If you've seen the Netflix documentary about Diddy, Diddy The Reckoning, which 50 Cent produced, there's some footage there that had never been seen before. This is a photographer that Diddy hired to follow him around and
Paris Hilton fit that mold perfectly. A socialite with enough clout to draw attention, but enough ambition to play by the rules of the room. And the rules, according to multiple lawsuits, weren't just about networking. They were about allegiance. One former Bad Boy Records employee, who spoke to BBC News under anonymity, described the parties as a facade for something much darker. The all-white dress code, a symbol of purity. The reality? Anything but. Now, consider the timing of Hilton's recent statements. In 2025, as the Epstein files dominated headlines, she dismissed the Maxwell recruitment claim as clickbait. But in the same breath, she acknowledged, "I'm such a good clickbait name." That's not a denial, it's a deflection. And in the world of high-stakes legal battles, deflections are often the first sign of a story that's about to unravel. Here's what we know for sure. The FBI has evidence. Diddy's trial is coming.
There is a partial verdict in the Diddy case after 2 days. The jury has reached unanimous decisions on 4 of the 5 counts.
The problem is that 5th count means that we don't get to find out what the verdicts are on the other 4 because they are hung up on.
And the list of names tied to his operation isn't just long, it's growing. Paris Hilton's isn't the only reputation on the line, but it might be one of the most fragile. Because if the allegations about her involvement in these parties are true, it wouldn't just be a scandal, it would be a career-ending revelation about how far she was willing to go to stay at the top. And that's before we even get to the emails, the resurfaced clips, the testimonies from artists who say they were broken by the system, or the fact that, as of this week, Diddy's legal team is reportedly preparing to argue that he was a victim of his own success, that the parties, the lifestyle, the allegations were all part of a smear campaign. But here's the thing about smear campaigns. They require targets. And if the FBI's files show what insiders claim they do, the targets aren't just Diddy. They're everyone who helped him build the machine. So where does that leave Paris Hilton? Right now, in the crosshairs of a story that's only getting bigger.
it's probably leaning towards guilt. Now, on the racketeering, I agree with you that the predicate acts may be found, but that's not all they need. There's an ultimate question. The first question on the jury verdict form is, do you find him guilty or not guilty of racketeering? Before you even get to the predicate acts, which you only get to if you find guilt, they could just be hung up on that question and say, this guy's not Tony Soprano. I am not convinced that I even want to find guilt.
The same parties that allegedly destroyed careers, the same network that's now under federal investigation, the same circle that included Epstein associates. It all leads back to her. And if the past few weeks have taught us anything, it's that in cases like this, the truth doesn't stay buried for long. Because here's the final piece of the puzzle. The FBI isn't just looking at Diddy's actions, they're looking at the enablers, the ones who showed up, who stayed silent, who benefited. And if Paris Hilton's name is in those files, not as a victim, not as a witness, but as someone who allegedly played a role, then the question isn't just about what she knew. It's about what she's willing to say to save herself. And that, more than any party or any headline, is the real story. Because in the end, it's not just about Diddy. It's about the system that let it all happen, and the people who kept it running. The machine didn't just run itself. It was fueled by silence, and the silence had a price. We're talking about careers launched, deals brokered, and reputations polished in exchange for looking the other way.
So he put his hands on females, put his hands on producers, executives. That's just his. I guess that's what the whole name bad boy comes from. That people don't really understand. What is it? What is a bad boy? Why did he choose that name? Like he never really gave a clear definition of how he feels about that name.
Take the case of Usher, who at just 13 years old was installed in Diddy's New York home under what was called Flavor Camp. In a 2016 interview with Howard Stern, he described the experience as eye-opening in ways no teenager should ever know, admitting he saw things that were pretty wild and not appropriate. Yet when Stern pressed him on whether he'd let his own children near that environment, Usher's answer was a flat, hell no. So why then did he stay? Why did he later call Diddy a mentor, even as he privately acknowledged the toxicity? The answer lies in the unspoken contract of the industry, access in exchange for allegiance. And if a superstar like Usher, who had the clout to walk away, chose to play by those rules, imagine the pressure on those with far less power. This isn't just about one mogul or one socialite. It's about an entire ecosystem where ambition was currency and morality was negotiable. The white parties weren't just gatherings, they were auditions. A 2024 lawsuit from a former security guard alleges that after being given a substance at the 2006 event, he was assaulted by Diddy in a private room. Another filing claims that Adria English, an adult performer hired for the parties, was groomed into trafficking over time, with her drinks allegedly spiked to lower inhibitions.
Did Phil explain why he's speaking out now?
He said he's speaking out because he believes Diddy's a predator, he wants accountability, and he doesn't want someone like this to run unchecked in the future.
These weren't isolated incidents. They were features of the system, and the system had gatekeepers. Publicists like Rob Shooter, who worked for Diddy in the early 2000s, described the environment as a circus, where the star was the ringmaster, surrounded by security, firearms, and an entourage trained to keep secrets. Shooter himself claims he never witnessed misconduct, but his description of the operation, buttoned up, with no one sloppy, paints a picture of a machine designed to control not just the narrative, but the people within it. Now, let's talk about the economics of complicity. Diddy didn't just throw parties, he built empires. Bad Boy Records, Sean John, C-Rock. Each venture relied on a network of investors, distributors, and media outlets that had every reason to stay in his good graces. When Cassie Ventura filed her lawsuit in 2023, alleging years of abuse, coercion, and career sabotage at Diddy's hands, industry insiders whispered about the tremendously loyal network that protected him. Her claim that her music was withheld unless she complied with his demands wasn't just personal. It was a blueprint. The message was clear: cross him, and the machine turns against you. This isn't just how Diddy operated, it's how the industry has functioned for decades. The same power dynamics that allegedly silenced Cassie are the ones that kept Paris Hilton's name out of the headlines, until now. And then there's the Epstein connection, which isn't a side note, it's a pattern. Jeffrey Epstein's operation thrived on the same principles: leverage, blackmail, and the illusion of invincibility.
The Justice Department has finally released some of the highly anticipated Epstein files. More than 300,000 pages of documents related to the late convicted offender were made public today. They include photos, flight logs, grand jury testimony, and a lot of heavy redacted.
The 2020 docuseries Surviving Jeffrey Epstein included claims from composer Christopher Mason that Ghislaine Maxwell once eyed Paris Hilton as a potential recruit for Epstein, calling her perfect for his tastes. Hilton dismissed the story as clickbait, but the timing is damning. In 2000, she was photographed with Maxwell and Donald Trump at a New York fashion show, just 5 years before Epstein's first criminal charges surfaced. The overlap between Diddy's circle and Epstein's isn't coincidental. It's a symptom of how power brokers in entertainment, finance, and politics have long operated in the same shadows. Both men allegedly used parties as hunting grounds, both relied on enablers to keep their secrets, and both left behind trails of people who stayed silent, until the legal walls started closing in. But here's where the story gets even darker. The enablers weren't just individuals, they were institutions. The 2024 raids on Diddy's properties weren't just about him. They were about the paper trail.
So we just got this new audio from the Diddy trial, and it is pretty explosive. This is audio of a voicemail that Diddy left to the Jane Doe who's been testifying in this trial for the last couple days. And he sounds really annoyed. He's talking about her maybe giving him the silent treatment, and his response is, I got a busy life, I can't be dealing with your silent treatment, and we got to keep it.
Federal agents seized financial records, communication logs, and guest lists that could implicate a who's who of Hollywood and music. And if the FBI's investigation into Epstein taught us anything, it's that these cases rarely stay contained. Remember the 2019 release of the Epstein files? What started as a case against one man ballooned into a scandal that ensnared princes, politicians, and CEOs. The same could happen here, because if Diddy's parties were indeed used to groom artists, to test their loyalty, or to document compromising moments, then the guest lists aren't just names, they're potential witnesses, or worse, for some, potential defendants. Let's zoom in on the mechanics of control. Multiple lawsuits describe a playbook: isolation, substance use, and the promise of career advancement.
This is the flight where Diddy said to her,
Showed her
she
the video.
testified
Showed her the
that
freak-off video.
he showed her a video of a freak-off that she participated in and said, if you don't participate in another freak-off when we get to New York, I'm gonna put this video out. I'm gonna send it to your mother.
And that's coercion.
She testified
if it's true.
to that.
If the jury
if they believed her,
yeah.
that's coercion.
That's
they would have Cassie.
Kua from Day 26 broke down in interviews describing how he was given substances at Diddy's Hamptons home, only to wake up in a disoriented panic with cameras rolling. His allegation that it felt sacrificial wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. The implication? That these moments were recorded not just for pleasure, but for insurance. In an industry where careers can be made or broken overnight, having compromising footage of an artist or a celebrity isn't just power, it's a silencer. And if Paris Hilton was part of that environment, the question isn't just what she saw, it's what she might have helped facilitate, knowingly or not. Now, consider the timing of the current fallout. Diddy's arrest in September 2024 didn't happen in a vacuum. It came after years of whispers, after Cassie's lawsuit, after the resurfaced clips of Justin Bieber's 48 Hours with Diddy, after Usher's cryptic comments about what he witnessed. The system held until it didn't. And that's the thing about these machines. They're only as strong as their weakest link. When one person breaks silence, others follow. When one lawsuit sticks, more emerge. And when the FBI starts digging, the dominoes don't just fall, they crash. We've seen this before. The Weinstein scandal didn't just end one man's career, it exposed an entire culture of complicity in Hollywood. The R. Kelly case didn't just convict a predator, it revealed how many people in the music industry knew and did nothing. And if the Diddy case follows the same trajectory, the repercussions won't stop with him. They'll extend to the managers who looked away, the labels that stayed silent, the publicists who spun the stories, and the celebrities who benefited from the system while it lasted. Paris Hilton's alleged involvement isn't just about her, it's about how deep the rot goes. And that brings us to the most chilling question of all. Who else is on those guest lists? The FBI isn't just interested in Diddy's actions, they're interested in the network.
In charge.
And a lot of people saying it's square peg, round hole, that we know that there are multiple jurors on both sides. It's not just one holdout, that on racketeering, they are stuck. But they have reached a decision on trafficking as it results with
the same network that included Epstein associates, that overlapped with Trump's social circle, that counted A-listers like Mariah Carey and Jay-Z among its ranks. If the white parties were indeed used to test loyalty, to document compromising moments, or to leverage careers, then every name tied to those events is now under a microscope. And in an era where old footage, deleted tweets, and decades-old emails can resurface with a single search, no one is truly safe. But here's the kicker. The system that protected these secrets for so long is the same system that's now turning on itself. The same media outlets that once glorified Diddy's parties are now dissecting them. The same industry figures who attended his events are now scrambling to distance themselves. And the same legal strategies that once kept victims silent, NDAs, payoffs, threats, are now being used against the accused. The machine, in other words, is eating itself. So where does that leave someone like Paris Hilton? If the FBI's files confirm even a fraction of what insiders claim, that she wasn't just a guest, but a participant in the after-hours culture, then her brand, built on being the ultimate insider, could become her undoing. Because in the court of public opinion, there's no statute of limitations on complicity. And in the court of law, well, let's just say the FBI doesn't do second chances. And that's the real story here. This isn't just about one man's downfall. It's about the collapse of an entire era. One where power was currency, silence was survival, and the truth was just another thing to be bought and sold. The question now isn't just what Diddy did or what Paris Hilton knew. It's about who else was in the room when the cameras were rolling, who else benefited from the silence, and who's next to fall when the files finally see the light of day. So tell us, if you were at one of those parties, what would you be willing to say to save yourself? And more importantly, what What would you do to make sure no one ever found out? Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and remember, in Hollywood, the only thing more dangerous than the secrets is the people who keep them. We'll see you in the comments. And trust us, this story is far from over.